All right, everyone, welcome back into another NBA DFS video. Got a small 4-game slate on this Tuesday. I think the initial news that we're probably looking at is going to be the Wemby news. So do you want to start there? Kind of what are your initial thoughts for the slate?
Yeah, I mean, definitely that's a good place to start, I think. I mean, he is already ruled out, so that's something to keep in mind. We did just find out that Porzingis is going to be out for Boston as well. So yeah, we have most of the news we need. I think the one piece we're maybe waiting on is if Shady Sharp plays for the Blazers or not. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's good. Nice little 4-game slate. Have most of the news already. Should be pretty easy to digest. I guess knock on wood though, because it is NBA.
Right. Yeah. Uh, it's weird. Yesterday I was kind of prepared for like slate breaking news, and not like after lock, and not really much came. It was kind of strange in that regard. Where watch today we're gonna get that just like randomly Giannis is gonna be ruled out or something stupid.
I mean, yeah, it kind of feels that way. I know. I did the same thing. I really kind of held out some spots for some news. Ended up playing some guys in the late games. I didn't really want to prioritize, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
We're on to today.
Yeah. Yeah, looking at today with the Spurs, they are soaking up some ownership, which is kind of interesting. I mean, we were talking pre-stream, like this game, a lot of people are trying to get to, but it's a 17.5 point spread. To me, that is like so strange to see. I know it's a 4-game slate, but what are we doing with that? Because to me, it kind of naturally seems like we should fade, but also at the same time, we do have some cheap price takes.
Yeah, I mean, it is not only an issue of, okay, so the issue is the spread. The reason I think we're still getting there is one, it's the highest total game on the slate.
Mhm.
Two, Wemby's out, who's their biggest usage player. And then I think three, I was going through some of the game logs trying to find when the Spurs have been blown out recently. Surprisingly, not as often as one might expect. But the last game they were blown out, I don't have it pulled up right now, but they did get their starters 30 minutes or so. So I think guys like Vassell, Sochan, Johnson, probably Collins should push 30 minutes. Obviously, Collins of that group probably feels the riskiest, but he's also the cheapest. And I think they are going to need to play big against Milwaukee. They have Lopez
Yeah.
and Giannis there. So, yeah, I think it makes sense to get to Collins. I'm a little bit surprised by the Sandro Makiuvashvili ownership here. That one, I don't know that I can get to with confidence. It seems like even in blowouts, he's not always getting run, and I know Wemby's out, but I don't know. It's just not
Yeah.
something I feel great about.
So Charles Bassey is out as well. He's been out since the first, but I don't think we've really seen a situation in which they need to get Sandro minutes.
That's fair. Yeah.
Like he's only had 3 games since then. He's played 4, 2, and 8. The issue though is like we actually don't know what to expect from him. Like we haven't projected to get 15.7 minutes at the min price. I do think that's enough to hit value for him. Like he is kind of a point per minute producer, but at the same time, like it's definitely doesn't feel like a lock in though. But to me, I will say it does feel like I almost want to go Sandro or Zach Collins because Zach Collins minutes. I don't know. Can we trust those? That's kind of my question. He's projected to get 30 minutes. He's only had like 15 minutes the last 4 games. Like, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth kind of trying to go back, and I think Wemby rested once on a back to back and seeing what happened there.
Mhm.
Since we only have 4 games, maybe we have the time to do it. I'll start trying to figure that out. But yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely trust Collins more than Sandro just because we know he's going to be
Okay.
on the floor. And the thing about Popovich is he's very, very difficult to read. So I think it's tougher to know if Sandro's going to get good run. But I agree with you that Collins' minutes don't feel entirely secure. I know they do have Dominic Barlow, I think, with the team right
Yep.
now, who is actually a center. I don't know that he's going to get run, but who's to say Pop doesn't want to see what he has in him tonight? Um, I
Yep.
don't know. I think the logical thing is you play Collins, you play some Sandro on DK where he's so cheap. Probably won't get to much Barlow. Only playing a handful of lineups tonight, but again, it is Coach Pop, and he kind of does what he wants, and doesn't usually gel with us DFS players, unfortunately.
To your point, we got Seti Osmond there and also Doug McDermott that are only projected to get like 17 minutes or so. But at the same time, would it be shocking to see like them start and then get 30 minutes and then like they become great leverage plays? I mean, I
No.
could see that happening, like certainly
Yeah.
within the realm of possibilities, or come off the bench and get heavy minutes too.
No, it wouldn't surprise me at all. And I mean, we also have Trey Jones, who usually has limited minutes.
Mhm.
He could see a few more. I mean, Devontae Graham hasn't been in the rotation, but there were a handful of games last year where Pop really let him go for whatever reason. Um, And yeah, I don't know, man. It's just tough to say. I mean, I hope we get some news or coach speak or anything, even though
Yeah.
Pop's not like a guy you could trust necessarily. But for me right now, I think I trust the starters. I think on DK, where you're getting him for 3K flat on a 4 game slate, even if he doesn't do much, it's not going to kill you. He should at
Mhm.
least see the floor here. But yeah, man, I mean, it's tricky, and I mean, as much as like we're definitely on the Spurs for value, I think the Bucks make a lot of sense too here in the matchup. I mean, obviously there's some blowout risk, but Giannis is probably the best OF index play on the slate. I'm not looking to second, but I'd be surprised if he wasn't. Yep, there he is. He's almost 4 points higher than Tatum. And Middleton feels underpriced. I like Portis coming off the bench, who we've seen get extended run in blowouts at times. He's already part of the rotation, so
Yeah.
yeah, there's just a lot to like in this game, and it feels kind of gross with that spread. But we did see Michael Tyler brought up in chat. He said 17-point spread can be 140 to 123 Spurs, and they still get there. And I mean, I kind of agree. I do think this is going to be a fast-paced game. And like I said, I was going through the game logs, really trying to find when the Spurs have been blown out. Yes, they lose a lot, but they do seem to stay competitive at least for 3 quarters most of the time.
Yeah. So I will say the players that for the Spurs that we don't have to worry about minutes, I think Keldon Johnson is like the one for sure that we can like say he's going to get 32-ish minutes regardless of the
Yeah.
game. Is he just an easy like click? I know he is kind of chalk, but is he like the one player in the Spurs that you feel most comfortable? I guess kind of rank the Spurs based off of how safe you think they are.
I think it's him and Vassell are like 1A, 1B. I think they're
Yeah,
both kind of the same.
I agree.
Yeah, after that, it's probably Sochan. He's been super inconsistent, but we have seen some big outlier games out of him. We at least know he's going to play 25 plus minutes.
Mhm.
So I guess I'll go with him third. Branham's been really good lately.
Yeah.
Not entirely consistent, but playing 30 minutes every night. I don't think they rush to get him off the floor in a blowout. So I don't know. Again, trying to guess what Pop's going to do is like an exercise
Yeah.
in sanity. Like we probably shouldn't even try. But yeah, if I'm ranking them, it's probably Keldon Vassell. You could kind of switch them either way. Then Sochan, and then probably Brandon Collins on like the third tier there. So
Okay.
yeah, if
I
that
think
makes
that's fair.
sense. Yeah, it is tough, but again, I think Pop has his guys, and it's not like there's a ton of cheap or excuse me, ton of really interesting rookies at the end of this bench. Like they're
Yeah.
kind of tanking, and I think the roster's kind of built for that.
Yeah, I gotcha. Let's get into some questions. So we got Jose asking top 5 priorities. Obviously, we're getting into that, but it does seem like it's going to be some of the Spurs players. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, they can definitely get there, Michael, with the 17-point spread for sure. I mean, they're going to be forced to play people minutes anyways, and they are going to play minutes. So,
yeah.
yeah, let's get into the Boston stuff. So Jose's asking about Porzingis being out, Al Horford at all. So let's get into that. Kind of
Yeah.
what are your initial thoughts? Are we going to Cada tonight? No, just kidding.
Oh God, no, I don't think so. I mean, there is no Cornet, there is no KP, so I think if this game were to blow out, we'd probably see Kata, but I'm not going to
Mhm.
really play for that on this slate. I really like Horford. When I refreshed the model just before we went live, he wasn't as
Mhm.
popular as I thought he should be. He's going to start here. Golden State really not that tough in the front court defensively without Draymond. I really, really like Al Horford here. He played a game without KP. I think it was a Saturday slate. I had a huge day all because of Al Horford in a similar matchup. So I'm going to be all
Yeah.
over him here. Obviously, the starters are interesting. We could kind of parse through that, but I do want to say off the bench, both Hauser and Pritchard are going to get extended run here, probably with
Yeah.
Porzingis' minutes out of the rotation. It's kind of like pick your poison. I seem to always get that incorrect. Like if I go Hauser, Pritchard has the
Yeah.
big game, or vice versa. So maybe you have a lineup or two with each. It's tough to trust them entirely, but I do think those are guys that benefit, even though they play different positions. Because again, they're playing the Warriors. Obviously, Looney's a center, but after that, they don't have to play that big. They'll have Sarge at the 5 at times, Kuminga. So yeah, I really like Horford. Tatum feels a little bit too cheap. But yeah, Hauser and Pritchard definitely interest me as value here, especially depending on their ownership.
I actually completely agree, and that'd be a good way to pivot off of maybe the Spurs players at
Yeah,
similar-ish
a
kind of
little
price
different.
tags.
Yeah.
I like that. Derek White though, I feel like I like him as well. Like to me, when Porzingis is out, we have seen Derek White have a good games in there as well.
Mhm.
Projected at 33 minutes. This game should stay close. I think I would add on him into there as well. Like Al Horford for sure at his price feels like a very good play. And then I actually like Derek White as well. Probably priced up a little bit too much. I guess, what are your thoughts there? Do you think he's priced up a little bit too much, or kind of what are your thoughts there?
I mean, first instinct is yes, but I mean, he's been at 7K all year. I mean, he's hitting
Mhm.
value most of the time, so I'm totally fine with it. And I wanted to bring this up too. I mean, we have a pretty good sample size of these teams matching up.
Yeah.
And Wiggins has not been himself this year, but when these teams met in the finals, he did a good job on Tatum. So I don't know if Kerr decides to start Wiggins tonight. I personally think he should stick him on Tatum and see how he does. Because Tatum, I don't know if you remember, he really struggled in those finals. We saw big games out of Jalen Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I don't was White on the team then, I think, but yeah,
Yep.
Brogdon was playing pretty well at the time. But
Yep.
yeah, it almost makes me like want to play less Tatum. I don't know that he's all that popular though, so maybe that's not really a hot take. 22%, 28% on FanDuel. But if you're getting to guys like Jalen, White, and Brown instead of paying up for Jason Tatum, I think that makes some sense here. It's just the price is down on Tatum too, so I'm like battling with myself in my head here. Like if Kerr's not going to play Wiggins a lot, then Tatum probably goes off and he's too cheap. But if he's going to stick Wiggins on him, I don't know why that matchup works. But in the finals, it was a big, big thing. And I mean, it's rare we have this much sample of data in a particular matchup.
He is projected to get 27 minutes. I mean, the model doesn't like him too much, but
No, like I don't want
27
to
minutes,
play
he could get there.
Wiggins.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
get
don't
what you're
want to play Wiggins, and like we always talk about how it's kind of dumb to do one-on-one defensive matchups like in the NBA because it's
saying.
pretty
Mhm.
positionless. But again, I just think we've seen like 6 games of these guys against each other where Wiggins usually gets the best of Tatum. I'll try to pull this up on the stream as well while we're talking through things, but
Mhm.
that's just my first thought when I saw this slate tonight was like, I really want to play Tatum. He's too cheap, and I was like, wait. In the finals, he was terrible against the Warriors. I know Dre's out, but he was seeing a lot of Wiggins, so it's interesting. And again, on a bigger slate, I wouldn't even think this like
Yes.
deeply or obtusely, but really, we have 4 games to choose from, so you got to find your edges where you can get them.
I'm curious as to your thoughts on Pods while we're talking about the Golden State Warriors. He's been someone that's been playing 30 plus minutes, been a little bit inconsistent for sure. It seems like with the Warriors right now, it's Curry and then one of Pods, Clay, or to your point, Wiggins now as well. Whichever one has the hot night shooting is just kind of just going off. They're kind of like, all right, here you go. Here's the basketball, go off. And it's been Clay recently. We've seen Pods
Yeah.
mixing a couple of 40-point nights in there, and then recently Wiggins. So I'm actually like, I don't know what to do there. Or is that just a situation in which like someone's maybe max entering, where they're maybe just, I want one of those in my builds. I don't care which one. I want to capture that upside.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to reiterate, like, as much as I'm talking about Wiggins, it's not because I want to play Wiggins, it's because I
Yeah.
wonder what he would do defensively to Tatum. But yeah, so I like Potts a lot, but if he's going to be more popular than Clay, I think they're super similar plays. I like both
Yeah.
of them. Probably wouldn't want both in one lineup, but I think they're both really solid, so I'll just play whoever is lower owned. I think earlier in the day it was Pods, but now it looks like
Mhm.
it might be Clay. I don't know, but they both look good here. And to your point, I mean, they're very similar. I think whoever is the hot hand is going to be who you want. Obviously, we can't predict that in the onset,
Yeah.
but yeah, they both make sense. Plenty of sense, really.
And then that's kind of it for the Warriors. We'll get into maybe Curry as a FanDuel play, maybe more as the stream progresses. But I do want to get into probably maybe us bearing the lead a little bit. John Morant is back from Memphis, and that actually could be a big thing. I was wondering what minutes he would have to get tonight because, well, they're going to be without Marcus Smart, it appears. I don't know if that's been confirmed just yet or not, but also they're still without Luke Kennard as well. And so, yeah, he's instantly going to get 31 minutes. And to me, like, why not get 33 minutes for him? Why not get 35? Because it's not like he was out with an injury, you know? So I guess, what are your initial thoughts on his minutes? Do you think they're going to be 30? Do you think it's going to be 25? Do you think it's going to be, instantly, if the game's close, he's playing 35 plus?
Yeah, so for me, I think it's safe to just project him around 30, and I think you're going to
Okay.
be safe that way. Like, I don't know. Personally, I do think he could play more. I guess it's just a question of, like, is he going to hit the ground running, instantly be back in form? I know
Mm-hmm.
he's been working out. I know he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's got a lot to prove here. But at the same time, I mean, who's to say the coach is going to want to ease him in? But to your
Yeah.
point, yeah, they're without Smart, they're without Kennard, they're also without Derrick Rose. Like they are very, very thin
Yes.
point guard. They also have Gilliard off the bench. but yeah, he's not a guy they need to get minutes to or anything like that. So more than anything, what Ja coming back does is really takes me off Bane and Jackson at their respective
Yeah,
prices. They're both over 8K. They're kind of priced for Ja to be out. I mean, I don't know. They have enough upside to be justifiable on a 4-game slate. But for me, I'm kind of getting away from them there. But yeah, I mean, if Jaws going to stay under 10%, I'm fine getting to him. I'm kind of just hoping he's a big first night back. But at the same time, I mean, there's value on the slate, but there's not a
yeah,
ton of great value. So it almost feels better to go with a little bit of a balanced build. And like, it's tough for me to say that I'm not going to trust someone like Dame over him or KD. I don't know. It's just tough to click Jaw over some of the other options, especially with it being the first game that's going to lock on the slate if we're waiting on news.
for sure. For sure. And I do want to point out, guys, again, I know most people probably don't play on Yahoo these days, but maybe they still have money in that account. He's min price there. So, yeah, I might play a lineup on Yahoo just to get some exposure to that tonight. That's crazy.
That is
That's
insane.
right? Like they just forgot. Someone was being lazy there. There are edges. I mean, forget which stream it was like a week ago. There was some insane value on Yahoo where I think they're like at 28.5
I
or
think
something
it
for
was
a value
Exum.
rating.
Was it Exum?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
that
he was
sounds
$10.
right.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, that
Yahoo's
was
cool,
awesome.
man. They used to do these no rate contests or no management
Mhm.
fee, and I'd play them every day. But yeah, I mean, it's tough to juggle FanDuel and DraftKings as it is.
It
But
is.
I do like that it's in the model though. So for days like today, I mean, honestly, it's a softer field over there. You're playing slightly less rake. I mean, we're not sponsored by any of these sites, so
Yeah.
I don't feel bad being objective here.
No.
Like, yeah, I mean, it's definitely smart to get some money on Yahoo if you can.
And that's honestly what I like about this is like I treat DraftKings as kind of my main platform, and I think you do FanDuel, but there's certain nights where I'm like, dang, this is a better FanDuel night. I'll get a little bit more exposure there. Or, tonight where I'm like, maybe I'll toss in the Yahoo lineup and like it's fine to go where the edge is,
Absolutely.
And then let's see. I think we just get into the positions here. The other injury news that we're getting is not too significant, I would say. Let's see if we have any more questions here, though. Trey Murphy starting in how many minutes? That's interesting. I didn't see that. So
If
it's
he's
kind
well, Zion's questionable, right? So if Zion's out, I think we could see Trey Murphy start.
of okay.
Um, Again, it could be Dyson Daniels. I don't know that we can count on that, but I mean Murphy's been really good in the minutes he has been playing, but I don't know. I would say probably 26 to 28 minutes. I haven't
Mhm.
checked the model. Let me take a look.
It has him at that, and it's showing him not
26.
as a good value. So
Yeah, so maybe if Zion's out, that changes. But if
mhm.
Zion's in, I don't know that you need to get to him necessarily. But again, I mean, it is a 4-game slate. We just have to like keep reminding ourselves that like some of these plays that we usually wouldn't be interested in at low ownership, they make some sense just because it's very tough to get different.
Mhm. All right, so Michael's just kind of talking about Ja as well. Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing. He does need to get to the free throw line, but have you noticed refs? I mean, free throws are down this year, right? Or not?
It
I
depends on
thought
the
they were.
player.
Yeah,
I think they are in general, but yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it depends on the player. The new flopping like rules have definitely slowed things down a little bit, but I
yeah.
mean, some guys seem to get calls, some guys don't, depending on who the refs are. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Jaw is a guy who needs to get to the line. I know it's a very different player, but I was talking about Cam Thomas last week when he was called. It was because he wasn't getting calls. As soon as he
Mhm.
started getting a few foul shots, like everything else opened up for him. Jaw's better, but a similar player in that regard. So I don't know. Yeah, if he's getting foul shots off, I do think he has plenty of upside. So I am fine getting to him. It's just I don't know. There's always just a little bit of like concern a player's first game back, regardless
Oh,
of
yeah.
what it's from.
Well, it's funny. The narrative definitely goes both ways. It's like, is he going to be rusty and like be
Or
terrible,
is he
or is
pissed
he?
off and going to dominate it? Yeah,
Yeah, it's hilarious. Yeah.
that's tough.
And with that, we'll get into the guards here. So looking at right now, the best guard right now is Damian Lillard, and he is pulling in some ownership at 21%, then Booker, then Curry, then Ja, then Simons. And so really looking at this, like pricing wise, it seems like Simons, probably Brown, and Chris Middleton. Those are kind of the players we should be going out of our way to play. And then you got someone like Devin Vessel there at 6.8. He's also coming in as a player we could get to, but he is pretty much chalk. So I'm actually kind of curious. What are your initial thoughts for the guard position?
I mean, I do like Dame. I don't like how popular he is, though,
Hmm.
necessarily. Simons is more popular than I was hoping he'd be. That was going to be
Yeah.
like one of my hot takes of the day. Shady on Sharp's questionable. If he's out, Simons is going to look even better here. Phoenix has been good, but they haven't been great. I actually think this game could be competitive in Portland.
Yeah.
So,
I
a
do
game
too.
I'll definitely be targeting. Booker, lower owned than he probably should be on a 4 game
Yeah.
slate. Could say the same about Curry on DK. Then we're right back talking about John Moran. So, I mean, if we're just looking at ownership on this small slate, because I think Dane, Booker, Curry, they're all in kind of a bucket together. And then maybe Simons, Morant
Hmm.
in kind of a slightly lower tier. But they all look good. But I will say, I do kind of agree with the Vassell chalk. He feels a little bit too cheap knowing the type of minutes and usage he's going to see here. Chris
Hmm.
Middleton's another one. I think he has guard eligibility on both sides. Pretty popular, but his minutes cap seems to be lifted. Really solid matchup for him here against San Antonio. So um, I don't know. I think the chalk is kind of where it should be on the mid range, but some of the higher price guys, I mean, you could just target low ownership with Jaw or Booker or Curry on DK. All those guys except for Jaw are drawing more ownership on FanDuel, but again, just kind
Hmm.
of compare them to the other pieces in that range. I don't think there's one standout like must have guy. I do like Dame a lot. I think it's more price though than anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And you kind of summed up my initial thoughts for the slate as well, like literally. So
Nice.
I like that and I don't like that at the same time.
No, no, you're
Um,
good.
looking at though, I do think I kind of want to put an emphasis on Middleton. I do think they are still kind of limiting his minutes slightly, but it doesn't really matter now. It's like he's going to get 33 minutes or so in a game that's close, maybe 27 in a potential blowout tonight. But all in all, he does feel like a very solid save play. But I want to get your thoughts on Malcolm Brogdon. If Sharp is out, is he someone that you would want to get to more, hoping that he gets an increased usage? Because we have seen him in a similar situation where, it's him and one other person. It was Sharp for a while. Simons is back. Simons is a higher usage rate player, but to me, I think Brogdon, if we get his minutes to 30 in this matchup, I could really go in on him as a low owned play. And obviously, that's a late night game. Maybe it's worth the risk. I don't. I kind of just want to get your thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, on a 4 game slate, I think it's a pretty logical play. I think most people are going to look at the game logs and see that he's been terrible since he's been back from the injury. But again, Scoot's
Mhm.
in there as well.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been a bit shorter of a rotation for him, but obviously Sharp is playing as many minutes as anyone on that team. It would definitely open up a lot. And so, yeah, at low ownership, as long as he stays low owned, I would be
Yes.
comfortable getting to him there. I don't think he'd start. I think they just move Tybalt to the wing or something like that and
Hmm.
still bring Brogdon off the bench, which would keep his ownership down. So, like, as a large field, high risk tournament play, yes. In
Okay.
lower risk or smaller field contests, I probably still wouldn't do it. I would just want to get to even more Simons, probably.
Yeah, I think that's fair for sure. Um, just looking at value on both sides. So Sochan on FanDuel is kind of popping up as a pretty good value play. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Also on DraftKings, but a little bit lower down there because you know probably a little bit softer pricing with someone like Jaylen Brown in there. Um, it's interesting. Like no one is too chalk on DraftKings, whereas FanDuel, I wouldn't say like it's overowned, but definitely interesting that on a 4 game slate, it's kind of spread out. Like I don't know
Yeah.
if I disagree with any of the ownerships really, but I also don't really see too many leverage spots as it sits right now.
Yeah, I mean, you could maybe get to Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
He certainly has upside. Probably could see a bit of extra usage with Porzingis out of the lineup. Pretty surprised he's sub 20% on both sites. Other potential leverage spots. It looks like Hauser's ownership on FanDuel is starting to climb. It's more
Yep.
that he's a small forward, I think, than anything, though. But it's pretty logical to maybe pivot to Pritchard and just hope that Pritchard gets hot and gets extended run. Um, I don't know. Trey Jones, 4,700 is going to draw a lot of ownership. I'm a little bit concerned about his minutes, though.
Yeah.
Um,
21 on the
yeah,
model.
it just seems like he should be the point guard for this team. And for whatever reason, probably because they're tanking, Pop doesn't want to give him those minutes or that run. So I don't know what it is. Like, are they trying to keep his value down? So, like, I really can't wrap my head around it. I like Trey Jones, the player, but at 20+% ownership, I think he's pretty easy to get away from as far as chalk's
Yeah.
concerned. Um, but yeah, man, it is tricky, I will say. Branham is guard eligible on both sites at 5K
Yep.
flat. He's okay. I do like that he's still sub 20% on both sites, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, I don't know, 4 game slate, you end up talking about guys that you wouldn't on most other days. Like,
Yeah.
to your point earlier, if Shadion's out, I mean, we have seen better games out of Scoot Henderson lately.
Yes.
Um, he's the same price as a lot of that chalk we're talking about. I think he's a very logical pivot. Again, it's tough to feel good about your leverage spots on a 4 game slate, but they
Mhm.
do exist. It's just, man, it's a lot to stomach.
I honestly, that's kind of my thought. It's like Scoot, I think, becomes a very good GPP play if Sharp is ruled out. I think Brogdon also becomes a good one. I think Brogdon has a higher
Oh, yeah.
ceiling still, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do like that point. We got a question about Goodwin here. Just kind of thoughts on him tonight. I feel like it's tough to get to tonight with Phoenix. Is Grace Downs out? No, he's projected in the model right now. So
I
yeah,
think he's
even
in.
more difficult to get to. So
Yeah.
yeah, 20 projected minutes, fair price for Goodwin.
I feel
And
similar
you
to
go on.
him. Yeah, I feel
Go on.
similar to him as I do about Pritchard. Like, they could be really valuable at low ownership because they're
Mhm.
cheap, but at the same time, if you get a single digit score out of him, you can't really be
Yeah.
surprised or feel too bad about it because that's certainly in his range of outcomes. I mean, it seems like he can have good games with this team fully healthy, but I don't know that he's always going to be heavily involved. Who's to say they don't have Gordon play extended run if he's hot from three or something like that? So
Mhm.
I don't know. For me, I don't mind Goodwin, but I'd rather play Pritchard, who's probably similarly owned. But again, 4 game
Yeah.
slate, like, it's not insane. Just not something I'm really rushing to do right now.
I would much rather get to Pritchard
Yeah,
for sure.
and they are similarly owned. It looks like
Mhm.
as things stand.
So let's go ahead and move on into the forwards here. Very interesting in the fact that we have some of the pay up options here that we'd probably rather get to, and with Giannis and then also Tatum. Like, to me, that's kind of the clear cut pay ups. Giannis, though, it is weird. Like, how, like, I think we want to get to at least two Bucks players tonight. But would it be too crazy at, I know he's only 11K on DraftKings, but would it be too crazy for it to just be a Dame day or maybe Chris Middleton and Brooke or something like that? Like, how much of a must play, and I know we have value, how much of a must play do you see him as tonight?
That's tough. I don't know. He's the best player on the slate if price doesn't
Mhm.
matter. The issue is price does matter. So it's like, how comfortable do you feel with your value pieces? If you're playing a lot of Spurs as the run back, I think it does make some sense, but you're kind of building for a narrative that maybe the game's competitive, Giannis gets some extra run, and the starter's staying a little longer. So it's almost a little bit contradictory in that way. But I mean,
Mhm.
just looking at the model, looking at projections, he's tough to get away from.
Yeah.
I will say at the ownerships, if I'm only able to play one of him or Dame, I'm happy to get to Giannis over him. But again, you're gonna have to find 2K plus on FanDuel to make that pivot. Um, so yeah, I won't say he's a must play. I will say he's the best play if price doesn't
Yeah.
matter. But unfortunately, it does. I did want to just circle back to Tatum though. While I did have this thought in my head,
Yeah.
they played in January, I believe. That was just a regular season game. Wiggins was in and Tatum went off. So he is capable of putting up a big score against these Warriors. I don't know if he
Yeah.
was hurt in that finals or what, but maybe that narrative's overblown. And again, 4 game slate, I'm probably looking too deeply into some of these things. Like, on a bigger slate, none of this would
Yeah.
matter. Just look at the model, look at projections. But I did go back and just look at the game logs. He sucked in those finals against Wiggins, but he did have 60 plus fantasy points in a kind of revenge spot the last time this team squared up.
It is kind of you know, refed a little differently as well in the playoffs too. So maybe
Yeah,
there's
that's
something
very
to that.
true. Yeah, I mean, if your ref's calling fouls on Wiggins every time he's reaching in or something like that, it could definitely change. So,
Yeah.
some variance there. But again, on a bigger slate, this isn't stuff you really even want to think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I found myself caught up on that earlier today, and looking over it now, I think at his price, Tatum's actually a really good play.
Hmm. And then also staying with Boston, we got Jaylen Brown popping in as a good play. He's starting to become chalk-ish, 21%, 26%. To me, that's probably still too low. I personally would rather get to Derek White, but he's coming in as a good value, coming in as kind of a standout play when we're looking at pricing. But then again, so is Chris Middleton as well. I feel like if we're going fair and balanced tonight, we probably have to end up on those two and maybe even Keldon Johnson at 6.9.
Yeah, I really like Keldon of that group. I mean, Brown has the highest ceiling out of him, Keldon, and who's the other one we were just talking about?
Middleton's kind of
Middleton.
safer.
Yeah. Brown has the highest ceiling, but he also is more expensive with a lower floor. So
Mm-hmm.
it's tricky. I think in lineups that you're not playing Tatum or White, it makes sense to get to some Brown. I'm going to be playing a lot of Horford tonight. I'm going to be
Mm-hmm.
significantly over the field on him, at least as things stand. But yeah, I don't mind Brown. Obviously, he has super high ceilings in his range of outcomes. It's just they're coming rarer than a lot of the
Yeah.
options that we could pay up for.
I do want to get your thoughts on someone like Grant as well. Again, we kind of have an if-then statement. Like, I guess if Sharp is out, I don't personally see that as like a big mover for someone like Jeremy Grant. Like, to me, it's like he's either shooting the basketball well and he's going to have a good game, or he's shooting the basketball terribly and not going to have a good game.
I like Jimmy Grant
Okay.
a lot, actually, at 7,100. And it feels a little weird. It's not the best matchup against Phoenix, but he's coming off two great games. He was out for a while with an injury. And
Mhm.
even with this team healthy now, I think the defensive attention has kind of shifted back to Simons and guys like that in the backcourt. And he's
Mhm.
taking major advantage. And he does everything. I mean, he had 6 assists, 7 rebounds last game, 5 boards the game before that. Occasionally gets you blocks and steals. So, I mean, he could fill up a stat sheet. And all these other guys we're talking about, Brown, Johnson, etc. I think they're all more popular than Grant right now. So, yeah, makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, he's coming in still as like 16%. So some slight potential leverage there, I would say.
Yeah,
Interesting enough, Doug McDermott, after I mentioned him and refreshed, coming in at 16%. So that's kind of funny.
Dougie McBuckets.
I get it. I get the appeal for some people tonight. I mean, 3.4 is too cheap, but why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he be chalk on FanDuel where he has two positions? That doesn't make any sense. Let's
Yeah.
see here. Sorting it by value, it does seem to be a slate in which people are probably still priced correctly. Like there's nothing too egregious, even with some of that news. And so Al Horford, to your point, I think is a good value still. And that kind of seems like the Bucks plays that we already mentioned. I think so as well. The one that I find interesting that's chalk right now is Bobby Portis. Is that people just really hoping for some blowout run where maybe gets I don't really know, honestly. It's just maybe matchup based, high game total. Talk me into Bobby Portis if you can.
Yeah, I mean, first, before I talk you into him, I will say he has a wide range of outcomes. So there's going to be
Mhm.
risk here. But he's cheap. He's a little bit cheaper than he should be. And Bobby Portis is kind of this perfect world of like, he's already in the rotation when they're competitive, but he also gets run when there's a blowout. So you're kind of covered regardless of how this game goes. And I think for that reason, he's pretty popular here. So yeah, I don't know that I'm crazy about it, but I do think he's a little bit too cheap. With no Wemby, that is a very soft matchup on the other
Yeah.
side, facing that Spurs front court. So he checks a few of the boxes, but again, very wide range of outcomes, high ceiling, low floor. But in large field tournaments on a 4 game slate, you're chasing those ceilings. You're going to need
Yeah.
ceilings. So I think he makes a lot of sense. I don't know exactly. I'm imagining it was a blowout against Detroit, but he had 51 fantasy points the other night in 26 minutes.
Yeah.
So we know what he's capable of in soft matchups. Um, I think his ownership has gotten a little bit inflated, especially on VK at 2,800. But yeah, I mean, he's a pretty solid play. It's just you got to know there are nights where he's not going to do anything.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think as long as he's reasonably owned, he makes sense here.
I do want to mention that Beasley was out in that game where he went off, and I do
Uh,
think there's
that's
something
big.
to that
Yeah,
because Beasley's kind of a three ball shooter as well. So
takes a lot of minutes. Yeah.
yeah, um, yeah, it's just fascinating there. So I don't know, there is some maybe potential leverage spots potentially. I mean, heck, Brandon Ingram right now is pulling in. Oh no, I need to update that. Never mind. Let me refresh on my end here. Let's actually go ahead and get into centers here. I'm very curious about your thoughts on DeAndre Ayton tonight because on the last game against the Suns, I kind of talked myself into the fact that he was going to have a good game going against Phoenix. But that was a Phoenix home game, and I personally think with those narratives, that's when we want to target them. Now it's a Portland home game. I feel like there's less of a I need to play well against my former team. Where do you kind of stand on that? Because Aiden could be a very good leverage spot tonight, 9%, 7% projected owned. No one's ending up on him.
Yeah, I think he has high upside, and I will say I think I don't want to buy too much into narratives, but again, it's a
Mhm.
4 game slate, so I think we can. Um,
Yep.
I mean, he has some beef with the Phoenix guys a little bit. Like
Yes.
Booker, KD, they wanted him gone. So yes, he wanted to perform for the fans, but at the same time, I think he wants to kind of rub it in Big Brother's face kind of situation.
Hmm.
I don't know. I know I brought this up on another stream at one point, but Booker after that game, he was like, Aiton had a great game tonight. Really impressive how hard he tried. Now I challenge him to do that every night. So they're still kind of sending jabs
Yeah.
at
Oh
each
yeah.
other through the media and things like that. So there is some narrative there, and I think at the price he makes plenty of sense. The issue is, I think there is a lot of good value with center. We
Yeah.
have Horford, we have Collins. If you trust Sandro, you could go there. I think Nurkic probably has the best upside of maybe any center on the slate.
Yeah.
Still no Larry Nance for Joe Val as well. So if Zion's ruled out, you're going to want to get to Joe Val. So I think it's just a product of the slate. There's a lot of good centers. But I will say, at his price, Aiton's definitely worth mixing into your player pool. Not going to call him a priority or anything like that in this
Yeah.
matchup, but at the same time, I mean, he is priced reasonably. And yeah, maybe if Zion's in, I'll probably get a little bit more because I do like Joe Val a lot right now. If I wanted to talk about him,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, Nurk has been great, and his price doesn't seem to move.
That is the issue. It's like you got J Val, who, if the game stays close, probably gets closer to 30 minutes in this game. He's projected to get 31 minutes in this game, regardless. Like, yeah, he probably should be a priority, but also you got Nurk in a pretty good spot. You have Brooke Lopez in a smash spot. You have Zach Collins. Actually, I get it. I guess I get why people are not ending up there. It's very hard to rank the centers like in terms of priority tonight. I will say that I don't know where I would want to go. I guess let's both give our takes on that. Let's maybe rank the
Okay.
top 3 plays in terms of priority. So not exactly OF index, not exactly DK value. If we're starting our builds, which I guess 2 centers, but we'll do 3. Which 3 centers are we going out of our way the most to end up on?
Okay, so I think it's Collins on both sites.
Okay.
Unfortunately, even with the risking the minutes, he's a little more expensive on FanDuel, but you can play him as a power forward over there. Then it's kind of the opposite for my number 2, which is Horford. I think
Mhm.
the prices are kind of flipped, but you have power forward eligibility on, is it both sites or just DK?
Just DraftKings.
Yeah, just DraftKings. So, like, the fact that you could play both of them at forward on either site and they're both
Yeah.
kind of a little bit too cheap, those are my 2 favorites. I will say they don't have the best upside of this group, but I do trust them at their prices point per dollar. I think it allows
Mhm.
you to get up to some of the expensive guards. But then for my third, I'll give you an upside play. I will say it's Joval if Zion is out. If Zion is in, I will pivot to Nurkic as my, like, raw point upside center play.
Yeah. I mean, J-Val can certainly get there even if he is in, but
Yeah,
we should get that
8K on
news
FanDuel
first.
now though, which is getting a
Yeah,
little bit heavy, but he is low owned over there.
he
Um,
is.
but yeah,
That
that's where I'm at.
that's probably where J-Val should be priced, really, on
Yeah,
DraftKings.
honestly, yeah.
To me, before we got the news, the Boston news, I would have said like Brooke Lopez for sure. Like it's just 6.2K. I feel like he just in a smash spot to go off for at least 30 or so in this game, but now does feel a little bit too thin to me. And
Yeah.
I will say, like priority wise, I actually might start with Sandro in there and then pivot if possible because he is power forward eligible on FanDuel. It does make him more appealing there, still cheap.
Yeah.
And then Zach, like I don't know, that's my issue. It's like I feel like it's more. I hate to do like one or the other, but it kind of does feel like that to me. Like maybe Zach Collins doesn't get those minutes that we're hoping for, but at the same time, Zach Collins is super cheap. So I would say I probably do prioritize those 2, and then just Giannis. I'm probably just paying up for Giannis. I know he's more of a power forward, but that's kind of my approach. But it's a interesting to say. Like we didn't mention Jaren Jackson Jr., who's probably too high priced. Don't get me wrong there.
Yeah.
Zion, who's power forward eligible as well, but. You mentioned Al Horford. I'm going to end up on him as a power forward play as well. So
Yeah, I love Al here. And I'm honestly surprised he's not more popular.
this could be a slate in which I end up on 4 center eligible plays, really between Giannis, maybe even Bobby, but Al Horford for sure, and then probably Sandro and Collins, really,
I like
or
it.
Nurk
Yeah.
and J-Val.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
No, I think it all makes sense. And I don't know. Like the only centers I'm not really playing tonight. I will say Jackson. I
Backups.
think he's overpriced with
Yeah.
buyback. Looney has
But
not been very
wait.
good. Or,
To
go ahead.
that, do you think that Ja being back could actually help Jaren Jackson out a little bit, where maybe he gets a couple more easy buckets at the rim, maybe the game stay close they're more likely to stay close now with Ja back. And just like, I don't know, we've seen that with other situations. I guess Portland's a good example of that, where someone like Jeremy Grant kind of did better with everyone being healthy. I guess, do you see that or no?
I mean, the thing about Jackson is he's super volatile regardless.
Yes. Yeah.
And tonight again, it's like if I'm just thinking, can Jackson have a good game here? Yes, but do I want to pay 8K for him? Knowing that Jaw's back, knowing it's not the best matchup, knowing that it's the first game on the slate, and if I lock him in, I'm not going to be able to
Yeah.
pivot. It's just there's a lot of things going against him. Like, could he have better offensive showings now that Jaw's in? Yes, it's possible, but his usage is going down. Like that's
Yes.
undeniable. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of a shifty answer here. I'm like yes,
Yeah.
but no. But I think my reasons for playing him are beyond just Jaw being back. It's also that I mean yeah, you're locking in an expensive player in that early game. And honestly, like I'd really like to just get to Joe Val if I am playing a center
Yeah.
from that game. So I don't know, it's tricky.
When Jackson started to go off, it was when Ja was out, right? Like that, we didn't really see much of them coexisting together, like both playing well, right, last year, or did we?
Occasionally, yeah, occasionally.
Okay.
But it was a lot of blocks last year for Jackson.
Yeah.
And he's had major regression in that category this year, which is interesting. I know there was like a narrative that at home the scores were giving him extra blocks, things
Yeah.
like that. But I forget who did this study, but I was reading this article. It was like blocks are the most volatile category season to season.
Yeah.
Like we see certain players who have awesome years, averaging like 3 blocks per game, and then all of a sudden they'll have one the next year, and it's like I don't know that we've explained it as like statisticians or anything yet, but Jackson's definitely a case study there, and like his blocks are way down this year, and that's a big reason for his huge games last year. So I still think he's capable of a ceiling on a 4-game slate. I'm not going to
Yeah.
argue with someone if he was in their lineup, but again, if we're ranking centers, making priorities, I have to take a few of these guys out. So yeah, that'd be a little bit tricky. And yeah, Demetrius, appreciate the assist here on my stat. It was 4-1 home road split on his blocks last year, which is insane.
Interesting. And then we got a question from Jose about Grayson Allen. I don't really care if he starts and plays 30 minutes. Do you?
I mean, I don't mind him honestly at sub 6K. I don't think it's a crazy play because you do get the flexibility of waiting for the late game if we were to get some news of one of these 2 late games. I don't think you want to play Allen and Gordon. It's rare that those two both go off. But with Beal still out of the lineup, Booker's done a lot of facilitating now. I think there are still points to go around for this offense. And I don't know. Allen, another guy with a low floor but a pretty high ceiling, and he's been more consistent than Eric Gordon, in my opinion. I've been watching a lot of Suns games. I think they're always on national TV because they're on the West Coast. But yeah, I like Allen enough to say that I don't mind him as like a last minute. But yeah, he will play over 30 minutes. I'm pretty confident in that.
Fair. I think that's fair. So let's go ahead and get into kind of a sample build, kind of lineup approach, like we typically like to do at the end of the video. I think we should start with Al Horford. We both kind of mentioned that we liked him as a play. Zach Collins as well, probably right. Just eating the chalk there.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't even know that Horford's. I might have to refresh again, but I think he's still at like 20% on DK, which is baffling to me. So
yeah, I just did a refresh. 19% on DK, 29% on FanDuel, which also kind of shocking because he's $500 cheaper there. Yeah. Oh, I guess that's why.
Or wait, regardless, I love Horford.
He's center only. That makes sense. Yeah. I want to get to Giannis. He's going to be my pay up. Who else would you want to get to as like who is your gung ho play after that?
I mean, Vassell, I think is probably the best piece of chalk that we're going to be able to afford.
Is there a point guard that we want to get to as well, or shooting guard? Where should we put him in? Shooting guard or point guard?
I don't know that it matters.
Hopefully not. Well, I'll tell you what. I do want to get to Derek White. Is that a play that you're fine with, or is that just?
I mean, salary's going to get tough. I will say that. So if you want to go with White over Vassell, I'm fine with that as the ownership.
No, I don't. That's fine.
Okay.
No. We'll go Vassell. We'll go Vassell for now.
And yeah, again, no Wemby tonight is going to create extra usage for a lot of these guys. I think most of it's going to go to Vassell and Johnson, but yeah, those are both good plays.
That's what's fascinating. If you do pay up for Giannis, you're pretty much saying that you're going to play Sandro for sure, just because he's too cheap, and that's like you might not be able to get to Keldon Johnson then. So it's kind of interesting there.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that though? If we are paying up for Giannis, we kind of have to play Sandro, just
Yeah,
value.
I mean, unless there's another 3K play that, yeah, I think we almost have to.
Mm-hmm. And it's not like he's an insane value. We keep bringing this point up. It's like he should be good enough to literally allow us to pay up for Giannis. And
Right.
that's really
Again,
what we're
and
hoping for.
yeah, we preach this all the time. It's not that we love the play, it's that we love what the play allows us to do.
So we'll get him in there. And now it's a little bit easier. 6.1 left over, a little bit more manageable.
We still get
Simon's
White, I
White.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll try White. I like his ceiling tonight. Then we have 5.7 left over. That is very solid. We could go Sochan. We could go Keldon Johnson still. Might get a little bit too thin then, but Sam Hauser's a play that you mentioned. Heck, could go Grayson Allen. Kind of what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think if you want to see what's left, if we go Keldon, I'm interested.
Yeah, I want to do that too. 4.5. Let's see. Pritchard? Kind of okay with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
That's not terrible. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's a 4-game slate. Probably won't be perfect. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, if you feel really good about your lineup tonight, you're probably playing too much chalk.
Well, I mean, it's still pretty spread out. Like,
No, I mean, I
Giannis
like it, but like, yeah, it's like, oh, man, Sandro. I don't know. He's probably gonna
I
be
hear.
fine. I don't know. He's just the type of play I wish I could fade, but on DK, if you're paying up for Giannis, it's almost impossible. So I'm with you. I think
Let's
just bite the bullet.
let's do it without Giannis, just real quick as well. Like, we'll take Giannis and Sandro out because it becomes a lot more manageable. But I do think if we're not playing Giannis, we probably want to play Lillard. So I'll let
Yeah.
you do kind of the last two. I mean, we're still strapped for salary then, but who would you want to get to more in a balanced build? Is it Chris Middleton then,
I was
or
gonna say Grant, but he's too expensive.
yeah, we don't have to play Lillard. Like, I don't want to
I
say that
mean,
we have to
if
play
we
him if
put in
he has to.
Lillard instead of Giannis, we also just make one more pivot. Maybe take out Keldon or we added Keldon. I'm confusing myself.
Yeah, Kellen's still in there.
I don't know. 4,600 is tough.
It's again, it's like almost you're just like kind of, I don't want to say
You're gonna take
forced
a
into
risk.
playing him.
Yeah, I mean, we could go like Chetty.
Yeah, honestly, or Doug. Doug was pulling in some. I don't mind that either of them.
Yeah, I mean, Doug's so cheap, but
I honestly, I feel like we should spend some time on Doug. Like, if he gets 25 minutes in this game, which he probably won't, but we haven't really seen it. But even if he gets 20 minutes in this game, he's gonna hit value seemingly. And so let's see how many minutes we haven't projected to get. Like this could be wrong. We haven't projected to get 16 minutes. Again, we don't know what Pop's gonna do for sure.
it's tough, man.
But it does. It kind of feels like, all right, we're playing Doug or Sandro. Honestly, it feels like that.
Yeah, it does. I mean, yeah, if we're doing the different build, I guess we go with Doug.
Yeah.
Can't say I feel great about it, but I just said that if I feel good, it's probably a bad thing. So maybe it works out.
I honestly, we probably have to go Sochan then to close it out because I don't like really anyone else there.
Yeah, I'm fine with Sochan. I like Sochan.
Yeah. All right. So okay lineup process. I actually kind of like the fact that it's not a straightforward slate.
Yeah, it's not too
four-game
easy.
slate.
Yeah, things will be a little different. They just want to look.
Yeah.
Beyond is only 4,700. I don't think anyone's playing him. I don't know. I'm just trying to decide if maybe he's a decent tournament pivot, sub 10% tonight.
Could be.
I don't know.
24 minutes.
Yeah, kind of risky, but at the same time, I mean,
it's cheap.
I don't know. It's tough to find anything that cheap that we feel great about. So
he does have a ceiling for sure. Like, he had 33 minutes in the last game, so honestly, like, we don't know what this team's going to look like with Ja back. We don't, and so maybe he does get a big bump. Like, that could happen.
Maybe.
I
don't hate it as a tournament play. Again, the issue with playing cheap value early is that if better value opens up late, then you're going to miss out on it. Like, it's better to play the high price guys in the early games because at least then if good value opens up, you can still get to it. But I can't imagine he's going to be popular tonight, so he's not the worst pivot on a 4-gamer.
We have Luis with an interesting take, and then we'll be getting out of here. He's saying if Zion out, Cody Zeller as a good pivot. I don't know. I think we'd rather just really want to get to the typical Pelicans plays that we'd want to get to. I mean, obviously Ingram and McCollum, J Val a little bit more, and then Herbert Jones, right? Like we wouldn't want to go too crazy with that, right?
Right. I mean, again, it's a 4-game slate. I get where you're coming from. Like, there is
Yeah.
some logic to it. I will say, it looks like they did just add Robinson Earl back to the roster. But Zeller is the better player of the two.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it would be insane. It's just more likely Sandro's going to get you like 15 fantasy points than even Zeller with Zion out, because we've seen that situation play out a few times this season, and Zeller just hasn't really shown an ability to get to 20 fantasy points. I think he's only done it once or twice all year. So I don't hate it on a 4-game slate, but I certainly don't love it.
Yeah, it's honestly, this is a more difficult 4-game slate, probably the most difficult one I think we have had.
Yeah.
Just because it's weird, some blowout risk in the best
the
game.
pricing's good for once.
It is.
So I think that's the big thing too. It's like guys are kind of priced where they should be.
Yeah, but any closing thoughts? I think we're good to get out of here. On my end, I don't have anything else. What about you?
No, just slate lock's 30 minutes later than usual tonight. I'm going to be doubling up. I'm actually going to be in the Discord doing the voice question and answer tonight. So if anyone hasn't signed up, tune in, get your questions to me there. I can answer you directly. Any question asked gets answered in there. We'll also throw you a cheat sheet. But yeah, just keep an eye on the Shady and Sharp news. If he's out and you can get him to a lot of Lowell and Simons and Grant, I think that's a really good way to get different.
All right, that's going to be all for today's video. Be in here tomorrow, guys. And again, make sure to hit that thumbs up when you come into the video tomorrow. That helps out the video a lot. Thanks.
Take care, everyone.